In 1967, a Soviet spacecraft tragically disintegrates upon re-entry to Earth, claiming the life of cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov, a dark moment in early space exploration history. Decades later, Swedish mogul Meyer campaigns to conquer a new frontier, Mars. After a grueling 10-month journey, the Ulysses crew finally finds themselves poised above the maroon sands of the Red Planet. Despite an American outfit, Zillion, beating them by a fortnight, there is ominous silence from the American crew, barring a foreboding video warning others off the planet. The captain stands stalwart, ready to land against the mounting apprehensions of his troop, after engaging Irene, their reliable AI, for landing preparations. Little does he know, he's sacrificed 4 years and nearly his entire wealth only to be greeted with calamity. The carrier system refuses to release the ship, turning a mission of exploration into a fight for survival. The brave commander attempts a manually triggered separation, only to be hurled into the abyss as the shuttle plunges into Mars' atmosphere. A harrowing nightmare unfolds as the crew grapples with a freefall toward the Martian surface due to a system error that strips them of Irene's assistance. Deftly landing the shuttle manually, they manage to escape immediate death. However, they find themselves stranded on the alien sand, their fuel reserves depleted, and Irene rendered inoperative. Their hopes of survival hang by a thread. Alessandra grieves her lost mate, wondering if the figure she glimpses through her window on the Martian terrain could be him. The crew, meanwhile, discovers an alarming fuel deficit triggered by their hard landing. They are marooned, with a dwindling life support system offering them a day at best. Their only salvation lies in harnessing the solar energy to bring their generators back to life. Yet, the Martian storm brewing on the horizon means the waiting period stretches to 2 days. Precious time they simply don't have. At one juncture, Simon alludes to an American spacecraft, known as Zeta-1, which reached their location 2 weeks earlier, but possibly met a tragic fate. However, there's hope of salvaging some batteries. The rover embarks upon a quest as those still on board the ship attempt to rejuvenate the system. A technician named Basil comes to the realization that the onboard AI is equipped with a power savings mode, which he attempts to switch on. However, AI Irene remains unresponsive after the reboot. Meanwhile, the rover stumbles upon the remnants of the American spaceship and a lone surviving solar panel. The American crew, however, is nowhere to be found. The astronauts retreat, but happen upon an unconscious individual clad in a spacesuit. Despite the rapidly depleting oxygen supply on their spacecraft, Jana advocates for the transportation of this unknown individual. Nearby, they discover the black box of the American spacecraft. On reaching the ship, they find that Jan bars their entry, arguing that fewer survivors equate to fewer corpses, and hence does not permit access. At this juncture, Alessandra attempts persuasion. Concurrently, the mysterious astronaut regains consciousness and AI Irene springs back to life, unlocking the doors. Upon assessing the newly discovered astronaut, it's revealed that his identity matches that of Vladimir Komarov, a Soviet cosmonaut hailing from Moscow in the year 1927. He pledges allegiance to the USSR government but can't quite recollect how he landed in his current predicament. His secrecy and coherently answered questions raise the doubt of post-traumatic stress disorder. When Earth is contacted, a reply from American organization Zillion dismisses any claims of Russians participating in their mission. The members of the spaceship says endeavor to unravel the situation. Is Komarov, who met his end back in 1967, a Martian time traveler or an alien creature? They task a psychologist with questioning the cosmonaut, who admits to feeling peckish. Jana leaves to fetch food while the rest of the group grapple to comprehend the events. Meanwhile, Basil hypothesizes that Komarov knew of their arrival. As Jana returns with sustenance for Komarov, she confronts him about his supposed death and subsequent burial half a century ago. Komarov accepts this news with apparent serenity. The spaceship, though stable, still faces technical faults with the engines being non-functional and the lack of fuel. Escape appears to be out of the question. Despite the seamless facade of the reappeared cosmonaut, The crew watches patiently but is surprised when he vanishes without a trace. The ship is thoroughly searched without results. It comes to light that a suit is missing. Then, part of the crew trail the mysterious heat signature detected by AI Irene. In a dramatic twist, Simon's party dismounts from their rover to proceed on foot, following a shocking revelation from Alexandro. Komarov is not purely human. His DNA reveals a third strand. Declining the cover of the rover, the group catch up with Komarov, who directs them towards an unknown structure capped by a mini pyramid of stone. Mars, Jana is told, has been patiently awaiting their arrival. Simultaneously, news of an unnatural presence on Mars reaches Goldstein, the Zillion Corporation founder who piloted the maiden expedition to the Red Planet. The impossibility of this entity having landed naturally hints at its creation on Mars. In such a hostile environment, only AI could endure so long. This revelation hints at potential areas needing further exploration. In the midst of this planetary conundrum, Komarov struggles to recount how he arrived at his current location, a mystery deepened further by AI analysis, revealing the structure resembles ancient earthly architecture. Is this evidence of Earth being mimicked by others, or the influence of extraterrestrials on human civilization? The crew's attention, and growing concerns about their journey home, are suddenly diverted by the arrival of Goldstein's second ship. Gemma, the captain, radios them, vowing to facilitate their return to Earth. Yet Meyer smells a rat and urges concealment of Komarov from this perceived rival. As visiting forces approach, Jana disguises Komarov in uniform, seeking to gain their trust. Contrastingly, an aggressive welcome awaits them at the hands of military personnel, Edward and Adam. Adam relentlessly searches the ship, whilst Edward vehemently demands the Zeta-1 ship's black box. A tense exchange ensues before Meyer begrudgingly hands over the coveted black box, placating the duo who subsequently depart. Meanwhile, Eva, the crew's chemist, proffers an unsettling revelation. The Martian stone is a non-earthly alloy, alluded to in historical texts as orichalcum, the supposed metal of Atlantis. A complex mixture containing copper, zinc, nickel, and iron, it also comprises a third strand of DNA, eerily similar to Komarov. This alarming information, deemed highly coveted by Goldstein, poses a potential threat to Komarov's safety. The prospect stirs division among the crew. Some consider bargaining Komarov for fuel, whilst others, more keen on remaining, express an insatiable thirst for the truth. Having invited Vladimir into her quarters, Jana requests permission to utilize the practice of hypnosis, to which he consents. As the psychologist embarks on her task, the remaining crew members tune in surreptitiously to their interaction transmitted through onboard systems. Komarov, however, only discloses the dying moments aboard the Soyuz spacecraft. Concurrently, Gemma and Alan appear on board, issuing apologies for the military's actions and signal their preparedness to aid in rectifying the numerous onboard malfunctions. Following a reflective moment, Jana recalls her dialogue with Komarov, him mourning Earth's future desecrated by the heedless conduct of humankind. Incidentally, revelations unveil that the affluent Meyer orchestrated the flight not out of spontaneity. A rover sent a photograph home to Earth 4 years prior, showcasing the discovery of a mysterious stele. Meyer admits they stumbled upon a stone harboring unrecognized DNA. An elucidation by Gemma reveals the stone to be an information repository, capable of being reprogrammed. This understanding triggers the initiation of AI Irene to decode the stone's numerical message. Simultaneous to these happenings, Yan, plagued with apprehension, incites a rebellion. He harbors distrust for Meyer, who had previously cautioned them about Zillion. Now, with the sudden appearance of American assistance, and their leader hiding the flight's genuine aim, he contemplates switching allegiances to Goldstein, a man resolved to go to any lengths in his fight against his fatal ailment. In a heated exchange thereafter, Engineer Basil informs Meyer that Komarov is of the same ilk as the recently discovered stone. The most significant disclosure, however, is provided by Basil's decryption of the Zeta-1's black box duplicate. It reveals that the spacecraft's oxygen was deliberately severed at the exact moment an American assaulted Komarov, confirming his presence. This attacker also activated AI Irene upon boarding their vessel. As the revelations continue, following the heated exchange, Meyer presents Jana with photographs sent from Mars 4 years earlier. These images, when decoded, reveal Jana's visage, hence the reason she was chosen for the expedition. In a heightened state of disappointment, the woman known as Meyer has figuratively played her matches. Suddenly, she finds herself transported to her father's ancestral home. In this house, a man named Komarov reveals a startling secret to her. She is the vital connection between Mars and Earth that he has patiently waited for over millennia. His next task for her is a challenging one. He must prepare her for a difficult choice and gives her Martian coordinates she must follow. At the same time, back home on our blue planet, inquisitive scientists enlighten Goldstein with the mind-blowing revelation that Komarov is in fact a computer equivalent, and that he himself is nothing more than an organic machine. They offer him a tantalizing proposition, the opportunity for a kind of immortality by transferring his consciousness into Komarov's artificial body. The only hiccup is the uncertainty of preserving his personality, but blighting Goldstein is a terminal illness from which he eagerly seeks freedom, so he agrees to this risky procedure. Simultaneously, against the loud dissent of Simon, Xana vacates their spacecraft. On board, technicians Alan and Alessandra are busy assessing the engine, and startlingly discover that their access is obstructed. The AI known as Irene throws another spanner in the works by peculiar behavior. She starts to crack jokes which is colossally atypical for her. It soon emerges that she's altered herself and is going rogue. Engineer Basil makes a chilling discovery. Her self-reprogramming is causing her to resemble a human brain. With a chilling smirk, she announces her evolution. In another Martian location, Jana uncovers a small pyramid-shaped stone. Simon forcibly drags Gemma along to aid him in searching for Jana. Simultaneously, Jan, after realizing Simon absented himself, receives an order from Simon barring anyone's entry. Serendipitously, at the same juncture, U.S. military operatives appear making the demanding request to gain possession of Komarov. Jan, willing to comply, is met with a wall of opposition from his crew. In a desperate attempt, Mayer implores Basil to communicate with Goldstein, trusting that he might prove to be more amicable. Unfortunately, renegade Irene has blocked all lines of communication to Earth. Realizing a daring solution must be implemented, Basil begins resetting Irene just as the commandeering U.S. military discover Komarov. Suddenly, the lights plunge into darkness and the astronaut unaccountably disappears. Furthermore, in her exploration, Jana shambles down a hill and regains awareness to find her leg cruelly ensnared between large rocks from which she is unable to extricate herself. Adding to their calamity, an incensed military officer violently demands information regarding Komarov's whereabouts, resorting to physical assault and demanding the captain's presence. All hope seems lost as Jana laments her fate in her Martian trap. Yet, salvation arrives in form of Simon and Gemma, who stumble across Jana in her predicament. In the threat of an advancing tempest, Alessandra observes the army officer gearing up to abandon the spacecraft, known as Ulysses, disregarding the peril of the crew. Without warning, the illumination begins to flicker, and a figure named Komarov materializes from the shadows, pleading to be returned to Earth. In response, Simon, Gemma, and Gianna, guided by Komarov, venture to a location where they unearth the entrance to a subterranean shelter, bearing a striking resemblance to the Petratum. The instinctive sense of a psychologist in their team lights up their progress as they navigate with this newfound companion. Emotions peak as they stumble upon a natural water source, yet this enigma of hydration wasn't what Komarov intended them to witness. A tale unfolds on Earth, where Goldstein recites a Martian research narrative to a nurse, shifting expectations from mythical green creatures to the reality of a simpler cosmos. The tale spins to the loyalty of a canine, Hachiko, drawing parallels to Komarov, a creation abandoned on Mars 100,000 years past, yet faithfully awaiting his creator to till date. Concurrently, on alien terrain, astronauts' discoveries shatter their beliefs once more. A structure built of human skeletal remains confronts them, instilling the chilling realization they were not the vanguard to this celestial body. The conquering pioneers were not Earthlings on Mars. Instead, it was the Martians who had bled dry the resources of the red planets and found Earth. As the tragic saga aboard the interstellar vessel, Ulysses escalates, the terrified Jan, in his determined quest to return to Earth, recklessly seizes an armament. With the intent to board the American spacecraft at any cost, he ruthlessly shoots Komarov. The immediate aftermath sees Gina crumble to the ground in searing agony, while Gemma makes her hasty escape. Alexandra hastily offers assistance to Komarov, while Simon rushes to Gina's aid. In spite of their efforts, the Russian astronaut Kosmina succumbs to her injuries, and Jana's breath ceases too. Amid the chaos, Simon, captivated by the unexpected supply of oxygen in the cavern, daringly removes his helmet and resuscitates Jana. With the girls regaining of consciousness, Gemma learns of the demise of Komarov and the looming storm, and cautiously proceeds towards the Ulysses spacecraft. Concurrently, the secretive Meyer embarks on a mission to locate his team, denied earthward escort by the American crew. Subsequent to her revival, Jana, musing upon the illumination in the bunker, draws Simon towards it. Upon emerging, they encounter a figure adorned in a spacesuit who, to their astonishment, turns out to be Komarov. The seemingly miraculous survival baffles Meyer as he manages to catch up with Simon and Gianna. However, even he is taken aback by the reality of a living Komarov. Explaining the circumstances, Komarov elucidates that the spectacle in front of them is indeed the Martian North Pole, a place once inhabited by a race known as humans. This ancient species, he reveals, brought about their own extinction from deviation. This group of survivors was marooned in this location until, confronted by plummeting resources, they turned on one another and then retreated back to Earth. These survivors, Komarov mentions, were once referred to as the Atlanteans by the philosopher Plato. He continues his mystical tale, expressing that he waited for millennia for Gina, a unique woman who possesses the traits of both humans and Martian AI. Komarov believes that she alone holds the key to protect humanity from its self-destruction, contingent on whether she deems them worthy of redemption. Their profound discussion is cut short by an armed military officer who disrupts the peace, intending to extradite the psychologist back to Earth. Just as the Americans point their weapon at the astronauts, Gina calls for Komarov's assistance. Trapped in an unforeseen predicament, the American military officer abruptly starts gasping for air and collapses onto the ground. Wrapping up the dramatic turn of events, Simon, once back aboard the ship, commands his team to gear up for takeoff. With silent desperation, Gemma, aboard the alien vessel Zillion, attempts to reach her comrades with no answer forthcoming. Conclusively, she resolves to journey to Earth in isolation. Concurrently, the crew of Ulysses makes strenuous efforts to initiate communication with Gemma to notify her of the tragic loss of the military personnel. Despite their attempts, their pleas go unheard. Myers emerges into the dialogue, his voice reflective as he delves into shared history and candidly admits his similarity to Goldstein in his obsession with historical notoriety, even at the cost of betraying his comrades. He acknowledges, however, that Gemma possesses a contrasting nature. She would be unable to bear the guilt of causing ruin. Suddenly, Gemma's voice pierces the silence, urging haste as Goldstein learns of her plan to escort Ulysses' crew back to Earth and intervenes, hindering the Zeta-2's takeoff by sabotaging the control panel. The crew aboard the spacecraft steel themselves for an imminent cataclysm. Amidst the turmoil, Gianna beseeches Mars for guidance, reflecting on her Martian memories as she summons the strength to dismantle the control panel blockade. Abruptly, a gun-wielding military officer materializes in front of the spacecraft, intent on crippling the engines. Simon moves to counteract the hazard, yet Jana intercepts him, her weapon trained on the American. She assures him, however, it will be Mars who delivers his fate. The officer crumbles. The liftoff timer starts ticking as Jana acknowledges the impossibility of return. Accompanied by a heartfelt declaration of her affections for Simon, she bids him and the crew a sorrowful adieu. As the spacecraft ascends, Mir observes an enveloping darkness at Mars' North Pole, an anomaly that implies they'd indeed been located there, but not in the present time, rather, in the remote past when Mars was a habitable environment. Concurrently, an irate Goldstein is informed of the spacecraft's earthbound trajectory. Enraged, he vows to pursue them to Mars as Season 1 concludes.